5 years, it's hard to believe that young legal aid lawyers is 5 years old, and what a way to celebrate this excellent publication. I am myself a young, well, an aspiring young legal aid lawyer. I really did want to be one. I still want to be one, but unfortunately age and a certain shortage of legal knowledge. I did read law at university, but I was cut off from my prime, excommunicated for joining in an anti-apartheid city. But that dates me, doesn't it? Nobody can remember it. Everybody was anti-apartheid, of course, they weren't in those days. But anyway, here we are, and celebrating the 5th birthday in these sumptuous Norton Rose surroundings, whereas we sit here as young legal aid lawyers, I think this is how it could be. But, tonight there are very firm rules about talking about money, you're not allowed to talk about it. Anyway, we have Closing the Justice Gap, which is a genuinely imaginative collection of essays by people who really tried to see how they could make radical, exciting, innovative ways to reform and improve legal aid. By God, they're needed. This is, well, as it was 5 years ago, a crisis. And yet, amazingly, as we look around, there are a number of people who are a little older than they were 5 years ago. Some are considerably older than they were 5 years ago. And some are very much younger than they were 5 years ago. And here we are, all gathered. And the ground rules for this book, which I think could well apply tonight, were that you had to write in the client interest, you had to be forward-thinking and positive, there had to be no point scoring, impossible stuff, no complaining about money. How on earth can we have an evening which centres on these rules with a government minister present? Well, we're going to. And what happens is that each of the panel have 2 minutes, absolutely guillotine, 2 minutes, to set out their radical, exciting and innovative ways to reform and improve legal aid. And they're not going to stick to party lines, they're not going to talk about money, they're going to talk about what they really dream when they wake up in the morning and think, how could I make the world a better place? And why don't we start with the Minister, Lord Bach. Thank you. Just stay where you are because life's too short.
It certainly is. It certainly is. First of all, many congratulations to YLAL on their 5th birthday. I think I've got to know them pretty well over the last few months. Fantastic organisation. Next to complaint, not being in this marvellous book that's been produced tonight. I rather hoped I might be, but sometimes these things don't happen. So let me try and make up for that. Yes, of course, legal aid is in a difficult position. It has been for some time, but it still remains a reasonably well financed part of public spending. Not enough, but still much higher per head than any other comparable country. What should we do with the limited resources that we've got? It's not so much a matter, I'm afraid, at the present time, and I think people really know this, of raising the amount. It's how you prioritise what there is. I come up with one clear answer. That is that we should spend much more on civil legal aid and a good deal less on criminal legal aid. I'd much rather spend more on both, but that's not possible. It seems to me that the poor relation of legal aid over 60 years, not just this government or even the last government, 60 years, has been the fact that we have not spent enough on social welfare law. Now, why haven't we spent enough? One, because the people who require that help don't have a loud voice, and because legal aid always been seen in terms of court hearings, where in fact legal help, legal advice, should be to keep people away from court, not to get them into court, whether that be family or in other parts of the legal system. Therefore, my emphasis in what is a difficult time, and I concede that, of course, for you, very much so as legal aid practitioners, what my emphasis is to make sure that the spend on social welfare law is at least preserved, at least kept, and that we try and progress in that particular field. And I'm delighted to say, over the last number of years, we have spent more in that area. We've begun to rebalance legal aid away from crime and towards civil. That is a difficult thing to do. We get a lot of criticism for it. But it does seem to me that if a legal aid system is to be worthy of its name, it needs to make sure that those at the very bottom of the pile are helped. Otherwise, it's not really a legal aid system at all.
Lord Bach, thank you very much indeed. Your opposite number in the Conservative Party, Henry Bellingham, another not old hand, but well-known hand at our occasions here.
John, thank you very much indeed, and also a big thank you to the young legal aid lawyers. We are facing a crisis. And if I can just make one political point? I think it's a great pity that during the boom years, this government didn't spend a bit more on legal aid, because every other department had more money. But since 2006, the legal aid budget has been basically frozen at 2.1 billion. If we were starting from a higher base, it would be a great deal easier to fight this current crisis, which every department is facing in terms of its budgets. And we can either go as we are, which is basically salami slicing here, cutting criminal barristers' fees, bringing in this new consolidation for criminal legal aid, cutting matter starts, or we can have a vision for the future, which is bringing in more money into the legal aid fund from outside. And in my article, I've highlighted a number of, I think, what are very radical, highly imaginative ideas for the future. First of all, we've got to extend before we event insurance. In Germany, 46% of the members of the public have before we event insurance. Here the figure is 1%. We've got to set up a track. We've got to also look at Robin Murray's New Deal for legal aid, which is going to be unpopular in some quarters, but could bring in a lot of money. We've got to look at the French CARPA system, the Caisse de Régiment Pécuniaire des Avocats, which is a central fund for all solicitors' client accounts, and the extra interest earned is skimmed off and goes into a legal aid fund. We've got to look at the polluter pays principle. We've got to also look, I think, at what the Law Commission recommended recently, which is matters have to be sorted out where possible, using administrative law on the ground. And furthermore, they feel very strongly indeed that if a judge is hearing a case and he feels that it should be referred to the Ombudsman, he should be able to do so if it's in the interest of justice and in the interest of the client. So we are, John, we're fizzing with ideas. We are raring to go. If we do win the election on May the 6th, we're not going to stand still, because standing still is only going to lead to more salami slicing, more crisis, and actually the way forward, I think, is not to cut the pay for legal aid lawyers. Because if you cut the pay for legal aid lawyers, you end up with legal aid deserts, and you end up without people able to do legal aid. So we have got the ideas, and if we're elected, we'll put those ideas into practice, but only after a proper, wide-ranging consultation. Thank you.
Henry Bellingham, thank you very much.